Ну что ж, дорогие друзья, будем потихонечку начинать разогреваться. Здравствуйте, я рада вас приветствовать. С вами на связи Мария Староверова, команда Learn Teach Web. Мы с вами на этой неделе в таком спринте. У нас образовательная неделя с Cambridge University Press. Ну что ж, дорогие друзья, будем потихонечку начинать разогреваться. Здравствуйте, я рада вас. Отлично, замечательно. Заодно проверили связь, все хорошо. YouTube тоже работает. Да, и комментарии мне тоже там пишет. Да, добрый вечер, добрый вечер. Отмечайтесь, пожалуйста, в комментариях, что вы вернулись, что вы со мной. Напишите, пожалуйста, насколько у вас хорошая связь, что все действительно хорошо, что не только у меня хорошо, но и у вас все слышно. И заодно поделитесь, откуда вы, да, откуда вы нас смотрите. Небольшой сейчас разогрев, чтобы мы так немножечко подготовились к нашим двум выступлениям. Впереди у нас 2 насыщенных часа. Связь прекрасная, отлично. Добрый вечер. Ангарск, Тюмень я видела. Мгм. Пишите, пожалуйста, YouTube тоже пишите. Мы еще 15 минут, я думаю, будем принимать участников. Ну и заодно мне интересно было бы задать вам пару сегодня таких важных вопросов, над которыми мы в последнее время активно думаем, и хотелось бы узнать ваше мнение по поводу них. Сейчас я поделюсь презентацией и попрошу вас проголосовать. А вы пока пишите, откуда вы. Новосибирск, Курган, Белгород. Замечательно, у нас потрясающая география. Интересно, Иваново, будет ли у нас кто-либо, кроме спикеров из-за границы? Так, ага. Все, я почти все сделала, то, что нужно было. Мгм. Ну и, собственно говоря, тот опрос, который мы сегодня для вас подготовили. Первый вопрос, который мне очень хочется задать вам. Прошу перейти в menti.com и ввести код 3812 5768. Вы видите его у себя сейчас на слайде. И рассказать нам, как часто вы посещаете онлайн-конференции по методике обучения иностранным языкам. Несколько раз в месяц, раз в 1-3 месяца примерно, раз в 3-6 месяцев, да, то есть примерно где-то в полгода, или раз в 6 месяцев или реже. Расскажите нам, пожалуйста, как часто вы посещаете онлайн-конференции методики обучения иностранным языкам. Очень хочется понять, насколько вы вовлечены вообще, либо для вас это не совсем стандартное событие, потому что мы делаем конференции обычно раза 4 в год, то есть вот как раз каждый квартал у нас что-то происходит. Поделитесь, пожалуйста, насколько часто вы бываете на онлайн-конференциях. И если есть такая возможность, напишите в чат, возможно, у вас пришла какая-то усталость по онлайну. Мы такое сейчас наблюдаем, что участники устают от всевозможных онлайн-форматов, что хочется какого-то живого взаимодействия. Если это так, если вы ощущаете, что подустали от онлайна, потому что работы в онлайне много, и вообще-то хочется поменьше сидеть перед компьютером, тоже расскажите нам, пожалуйста. А, И есть еще, знаете, такой момент. Онлайн тоже онлайн рознь. Бывает онлайн, когда вы просто включили и слушаете, а бывает онлайн, когда вы взаимодействуете. Взаимодействие непосредственно вот общаетесь, как у нас в начале было. Можно было пригласить вас прям на живой диалог, беседу. У нас формат немного другой, мы его все-таки стараемся выдерживать, чтобы у нас не возникало, да, вот такого глубокого общения или погружения в какие-то темы личные уже, когда участники включаются камеры, микрофоны. Все-таки у нас, да, формат такой конференции, когда спикеры выступают. И участники некоторые говорят и пишут нам, что хотят такие форматы круглых столов, когда можно прям вот в небольшом камерном формате общаться, беседовать, разговаривать. Читаю ваш комментарий. При любой возможности, пишет Юлия. Да, вот один раз, 1-3 раза только начала. Мгм. Светлана, ну если что-то не нравится, выходите, пожалуйста. У нас, как всегда, зал заполнен, поэтому я думаю, вы место уделите, предоставите тому, кому действительно, нужно и важно здесь быть. Хочется живого непосредственного общения. Живое общение ничем не заменить. Мгм, согласна. Итак, еще раз приглашаю, да, проголосовать, как часто вы посещаете онлайн-конференции по методике обучения иностранным языкам. И сейчас у нас, я смотрю, лидирует частотность, то есть коллеги всячески повышают а, профессионализм и а, стараются быть в курсе всего, что происходит на рынке. Замечательно, прекрасно. И второй вопрос, который я бы вам хотела сегодня задать. М, Разрешите мне открыть следующий слайд. Так, вот, собственно говоря, он. И про него тоже хочу вас спросить, задать следующий вопрос. Хотели ли бы вы участвовать в клубе педагогов и регулярно встречаться по профессиональным темам? Тот же самый код 3812, да? А, Расскажите нам, пожалуйста, хотели бы вы регулярно встречаться уже узким кругом и говорить на различные профессиональные темы? Делитесь. Прошу вас перейти на menti.com и по коду 3812 5768 ответить еще на один вопрос. Ну и как у вас настроение? Потому что 2 дня прошли, дни очень активные у нас были. У нас в первом дне а, уже порядка 1800 участников просмотрели эфир первого дня. Второй день уже запаздывают, уже так поменьше, где-то в половину. Вот то, что я сегодня смотрела, это было 900, да, 900 участников просмотрела. Рекомендую вам все-таки вести, в расписание встроить просмотр всех 4 дней, потому что эфир у нас доступны по 22 марта включительно. И мы ждем от вас содержательных отзывов, чтобы вы узнали, с чем вы уходите с каждого из дней, с какими инструментами, инсайтами, для того, чтобы тем участникам, которые посетят все 4 дня, оставят а, отзывы, да, обратную связь, мы могли выдать сертификат участников. Вы действительно это делаете и пишете о разном, о том, чего вам не хватило, что еще хотелось, и что было для вас открытием. Прям перечисляете инструменты, подмечаете всяческие нюансы. Это очень радует. Да? Отзывы содержательные мы как раз и будем принимать во внимание. Ну что же, у нас тоже коллеги ответили, что да, хочу, кто-то не знает, кто-то уже состоит. Это замечательно. Мгм. Хорошо. Какие, а, какие темы, дорогие коллеги, вас, соответственно, интересуют больше всего? И какие темы произвели на вас такое большее впечатление? Давайте еще раз поделюсь с вами информацией о нашем расписании. Если вы а, его забыли, сегодня были участники, кто забыли, да, вот сегодня у нас 2 спикера, Людмила Александровна Кожевникова от Cambridge University Press и Джин Лулу из Air Force Academy. Сейчас я их буду представлять. Начну с Людмилы Александровны. Но прежде чем я перейду туда, отмечу, что 19 марта в пятницу мы с вами стартуем как обычно. То есть если сегодня мы начали на час позже, то сегодня, то завтра мы начнем в 16:45. И завершим, соответственно, в 19:30. Большое у нас будет такое завершение. Напомню, что 20 марта в субботу, завтра как раз определится время, во сколько, мы с вами встречаемся на розыгрыш. 20 марта в субботу в прямом эфире в Инстаграм мы будем разыгрывать учебные пособия от Cambridge University Press. И об этом у нас был прямо отдельный пост в Инстаграме. По 19 число включительно можно участвовать и можно оставлять, соответственно, номерок. Сейчас я вам покажу этот пост и приглашаю вас там отметиться. Да? Вот этот пост, розыгрыш учебных пособий. У нас там очень много уже активных участников проявилось, но тем не менее совсем не стоит считать, что вы не можете выиграть. В прошлый раз мы уже в 3-й раз устраиваем такие розыгрыши. Каждый раз участники попадались самые неожиданные, кто выигрывал, и говорили, что вообще не думали, что смогут выиграть. Приглашаю вас подписаться на наш Инстаграм и, соответственно, поучаствовать в этом розыгрыше учебных пособий. Ну что же, а я тем временем начну уже передавать слово нашим прекрасным спикерам и представлять их. Так, секундочку. Отлично. С нами сейчас будет Людмила Александровна Кожевникова. Людмила Александровна будет выступать на тему Integrating Learning and Assessment, the shortcut to exam success. Людмила Александровна представляет у нас Cambridge University Press. Потрясающая биография, and I will switch to English from right now on because two speakers who are supposed to present right now are going to present in English. And we wrote about this in our email. So Людмила Кожевникова is currently an associate professor of Samara National Research University and regional consultant of Cambridge University Press. And today she's going to talk about integrating learning and assessment, a shortcut to exam success. She's going to talk about preparation to exams. And Ludmila Alexandrovna, if you can turn on your camera and your microphone, please do so.
Yes, hello, I have unmuted my microphone. Do you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes, that's good.
Yes.
Unfortunately, my camera doesn't work. That's why you will probably see only my name, but I'm also going to share my presentation.
Go ahead.
Yes.
Yep, we can see it.
Good. Thank you, Maria, very much for introduction. Hello, everyone. I'm very happy to see some familiar names on the list of participants, and I'm very happy to see you all virtually there. Hope to see you in person one day. And just a quick comment on what we are going to do today and why. I've been dealing with teaching and assessment issues for about 20 years as a teacher, researcher, and a teacher trainer. I've done about 300 workshops on these issues, and today I'm going to share with you some insights, strategies, and techniques that are grounded in scholarly and empirical research. I've chosen the activities that have proven effective, and I received very, very positive feedback from those teachers who integrated them into their classrooms. I assume that today's participants, especially those who have been teaching for exams for quite a while, may be familiar with some of these techniques, and I would like to ask them to comment on them in the chat box, saying if they also work well for them. And I would also appreciate it if you decided to contact me after the workshop sometime later on, and if you shared your best practices with me and allow me to refer to your experiences in my future workshops. So you see my contact email. And with this, I would like to say that the approach that the Cambridge has adopted lets us this approach lets us learn from each other. It helps us constantly improve our teaching materials and unlock real life opportunities for all. We are experts together. That's why all your comments are really very important for me. Okay, so I would like to start with a quick question, and I'm going to answer this question myself because I've got a lot of things to share with you. If I asked you how often do you assess your students, I'm absolutely sure that you will say that I assess them every minute of my class, of my lesson, because we put the learner at the heart of our work and we try to make the most of our classes. We try to help the learner be the best they can be and reach the goals they have identified for themselves. So I'm going to start also with some terms. Uh, I'm not going to overload you with lots of terminology at this time of the day, but I'm sure we must understand what we are doing in the classroom to make our teaching effective. So I'm going to use the term assessment for learning when I talk about formative assessment, assessment of learning when I talk about summative assessment, and I'm also going to add one more type of assessment, assessment as learning, which develops and supports students' metacognitive skills. This form of assessment is crucial in helping students become lifelong learners, the 21st century skill, isn't it? It includes self and peer assessment, reflection on test strategies, testing techniques on how tests are developed, are written. And as students engage in this type of assessment, they learn to make sense of information related to their prior knowledge and use it for new learning. So students develop a sense of ownership and efficacy when they use our feedback, the students, their peers' feedback, and they start making judgments, improvements, and changes to what they understand. So if we integrate all these three types of assessments into the process of teaching and learning, this will help us optimize efficiency and effectiveness of teaching and learning. It will help us maximize students' performance, providing a systematic route to exam success. And it also will help us to personalize learning pathways, making our students and ourselves absolutely happy. So this was a quick introduction, and now I'm going to talk about teaching and testing. We are going to discuss if we are teaching for the tests or to the tests. Then we'll also look at some strategies, activities, and techniques, how to integrate exam preparation into our classroom. We'll discuss with you how assessment and learning can boost, or maybe it won't be able to boost our students' scores in exams. And in conclusion, we'll discuss all the success factors in exam preparation. So I hope we all understand that there needs to be a balance between the content and focus of our teaching and those of the tests that measure the performance of our students. They should accurately represent what knowledge we teach about the language and what skills we teach our students will help them to develop and become successful in their exams, or with their exams, if you like. Conversely, our teaching must also reflect and respond to what the test focuses on to ensure that our students perform in exams to the best of their abilities. However, some teachers prefer to teach either for the test or to the test. One of these is curriculum focused, and one of them is item focused. Item focused teaching, that is the teaching when the emphasis is put on or is placed on practicing the specific task types and content from the exam. So this teaching may help students become more familiar with the exam expectations, but because of its limited focus, it also leads to memorization and cramming for the examination in place of deep learning. It also shifts the focus from what's important to learn to what's typically easier to assess. And when it comes to exam preparation, instruction time is often spent practicing for the test, while important and challenging topics and activities are dropped from the curriculum. It is of paramount importance, however, to put the emphasis of learning. We should never teach something that's otherwise unimportant or irrelevant for our learners to learn. only because it's going to be tested afterwards. The primary aim of a good language course is to develop confident communicators in English, not only learners who are good at one thing only, passing a particular examination. So these are the two types, or these are the two approaches, um, teaching for exams and to exams. Which of these is teaching to exams, teaching to the test, in your opinion? Could you please type in the chat box, how do you understand this term, teaching to the test? And if you are teaching to the test, please put a plus. If you are teaching for the test, okay, also put some sort of uh, comment on that. Okay, teaching for the test or to the test? All right, I see some comments here. Yes, teaching to the test is the way of teaching when the way of teaching when we are focusing mainly on teaching the items. Okay, when we are just coaching for the test, so to say. All right, but how to achieve a good balance of teaching for the test and to the test? There's nothing wrong about teaching to the test because sometimes when we are pressed for time, our student is not, good enough to sit for the examination he is aiming at, but we still want to help them. In this case, of course, we'll try to teach to the test, but in our regular practice, of course, we'll try to balance that, and we'll try to incorporate assessment into our learning. So this could be done by, choosing a book that integrates teaching English and teaching for examination. Something like Prepare, which you are all well familiar with. But if you have to use the course book your school allows you to teach with, or if you prepare your own materials, what would be the strategy? And in this case, number one strategy is have a sound knowledge of the exam itself. All right, we are supposed to know everything about the assessment, the types of assessment, how much component of the assessment is worth, how they will be graded. And Christine Kuhn says that it's every teacher's responsibility to provide this information or direct students to where they can obtain it. We need to keep ourselves informed on exam regulations and administrative details. It may be common knowledge, but when I ask participants of my seminars how well they are familiar with EGE, OGE specifications and codificator, 50 or 60% of the participants confess that they have never read them carefully. Without this sound knowledge, it will be really very difficult to integrate effective exam preparation into our classroom. So let's first look at some examples of integrated exam training. What activities can we add to our textbooks to optimize, maximize, and to personalize teaching and learning so that our students have only good scores in examinations? So in order to provide a meaningful context for the examination training, the course book lesson begins with some photos, some general knowledge and personalization question. This approach helps students activate the existing schemata, that is what they already know about the topic. In our case, in the case of this particular lesson, it is magic tricks. And as the activity is not meant to be a test of students' knowledge, the suggested form of interaction is pair work. The teacher's role is monitoring, assessing, and picking up on any interesting ideas to follow up with the class afterwards. So the key functions of this activity are, as you see, contextualize the existing schemata. With exercise 2, we allow students to skim through the text, optionally aided by planning the recorded text to listen as they read. First, they can check their predictions, give a sense of the complexity and extent of the complete text, as well as a sense of the language being used to express the ideas. This should help them navigate the text more easily when they move on to the exam task. As students only need to find 4 specific and concrete pieces of information, they can process the text quickly to understand its gist. So exercise 3 they have to do is modeled very closely on the Cambridge English First Examination Part 6 of the Reading and Use of English paper, Gapped Sentences. So breaking down the process of decoding a written text is an essential skill for students to learn and apply when faced with an unfamiliar text. It is typical learner behavior to rush the completion of exam papers. We all know some of our students are like that. They start working on the task without any mental preparation for the challenges ahead. However, we all understand that this is not a very effective approach. Instead, students should first look for the clues to establish the context, like in exercise 1. They should read the text quickly without completing the task itself, like in exercise 2, to understand its gist or main message. Only then should they move on to attempting the task itself, and by following this approach, they will have a better chance of processing the unfamiliar content and finding the correct answers to the question. So in order to train students to be more autonomous, they also need to develop their study skills and the exam taking skills. For example, in this exercise, we ask them to focus on identifying relevant pieces of information, which will then help them identify logical links in the gapped sentence task. So if I ask you to do that, I'm sure you will choose. So that's what we have done. And if we look at this exercise, when we ask students to choose the sentence that doesn't have any relevance to the first, even if we haven't read the text, we can clearly understand that this is option C. Uh, and after that, we can discuss students why C is the sentence that is not relevant to the text. And after that, we can ask you students to use this sentence to make a similar task for their partner. So what have we done so far? The context is established, the student's previous knowledge is activated, students quickly read for gist, exam task is completed, study skills identifying relevant information are introduced, and practice. So this is a typical lesson from the course book, and it is a typical example of curriculum-focused exam preparation, where exam training is integrated in the development of general communication skills in English. Though the lesson only covers one typical exam task format, the fact that it is contextualized, relevant, and meaningful, and personalized, because students are going to discuss their items and they're going to discuss what they have read in the speaking part of this unit. So this all means that learning is much more effective. To put it simply, by following a curriculum-focused approach to exam training, we are preparing our students for the exam even when it is not immediately apparent that we are doing that. So the exam training is integrated into the course book, gradually introducing both the language content and the various skills that will be tested by the exam. So I also think that you will agree with me that very often, more often than not, once we have completed a task and checked and confirmed answers, like in this example, we usually move on to working with other new tasks, similar or different, but we don't very often work with the text. We do not squeeze out of this text as much as possible. Though most reading and listening texts lend themselves to a lot of different activities that can help us develop study and test-taking skills. That's why we often hear experienced teachers saying that when they teach students read text, they teach them to read text with a pencil or a highlighter in their hands. The question is, what to underline, to circle, or to highlight? For this, we need to know everything about the content of the examination, what is tested, how it is tested, and how we can teach this, how we can teach skills, sub-skills, micro-skills, if you like. So let's look at some activities that we can add to a text like that to teach inference skills, which deal with understanding explicit or implicit information. Until recently, the OGE specification stated that inference skills, or the ability to understand implicit messages, affects the item difficulty. So these skills deal with the ability to read between the lines. There are 3 levels of understanding, as we all know. Reading the lines, this is literal meaning. Reading between the lines, inferred meaning. Understanding the information that is presented implicitly. And reading beyond the lines, or critical evaluation of the text. So, research shows that the ability to draw inferences predetermines reading skills. That is, poor inferencing causes poor comprehension. There are many different types of differences tested by, of inferences, tested by different exams. For example, tasks 12, 18 of OGE, and this is an example of OGE 2022, which are considered to be the most challenging ones, they always include these sort of questions. Do we always teach them? Well, my experience shows not always, because many teachers do not even realize that there are different types of inferences. So let's look at how to teach some basic inferences skills. And we'll start with this type of exercise, which I would call once upon a picture. Why do we start with a picture? Because we have to remember that Generation Z learners are often referred to as screenagers, and they can process visual information much better than verbal information. So we should certainly build on this ability and try to use as many engaging pictures in our classroom as possible. Okay, this is a task for you. What 4 things can we infer about the kid? Look at this picture carefully. I'll also do it like that for you to see some details. And my question is, what 4 things can we infer about the kid? Please type in the chat box your answers. All right. No ideas? I have chosen the easiest picture and the most engaging one, in my opinion. Okay, I see some answers. He's running away from home. Maybe. Look at his backpack. The kid feels very independent. Okay. Anything else? All right. He's determined. He's going to travel, yes. He's left alone and entertains him, so maybe trying to escape. He's going to travel. Well, this is something that we can say for sure. He's copying his parents, waiting for his mother, imitating his father. Yes, look at his shoes. We can infer that his father is really very tall, right? Traveling to somewhere hot. Yes. All right. So see, we can infer many things about the kid, and I'm absolutely sure that we can infer that he's very smart and he's prepared for anything. Okay, look at his at the spoon in his hand. So In this way, of course, we have to choose engaging images. The images that take an unusual angle on a familiar object, activity, or scene, which is open to various interpretations, which provide, the pictures, the images that provide opportunities for personalized response. And this is one of my favorite pictures taken from Cambridge Empower level B1, and my students love this picture because they can infer so many things just looking at it. And then I explain to them, so this is the skill that they can also use when they read text. And I teach them how to make inferences at the sentence level. That's what I usually do. I ask them to read the sentence and pay attention to the punctuation mark. So today is my birthday, and the question is, how does the person feel? Again, in the chat box, will you please type your answers? What can we infer? Happy, right? Yes, Larissa, happy. Okay, embarrassed. Well, I would use another question mark here. Excited, right? Okay, yes, we can understand that the person is happy and excited about his or her birthday. And I asked you to look, to pay attention to the punctuation mark, to the exclamation mark. Because if I change it for a question mark and ask you again to interpret this, today is my birthday. So how does the person feel if I use it like that? Excited? Lost in time. Exactly. Wondering. Right. And if I say, today is my birthday, a different feeling, isn't it? So how do I feel in this case? Sad, right? So many students tend to overlook the punctuation marks, which are really very helpful when they read a text. And I remember that in one of the examination tasks, students just did notice this exclamation mark, and they chose the wrong answer because they didn't understand from the context how their character felt about a certain situation. So that's why even a simple task like that can help students understand what inference is and how to uh, pay attention to how to um, focus attention on what you are reading. Okay, if I give you another example, I was up late last night doing my homework, and the question is the same. How do I feel? And this is a very typical situation for many of us. That's why I see many correct answers. Okay, yes, I feel tired. And again, then I ask my students just to connect these two parts. I was up late last night doing my homework and I was tired. So which conjunction would you use instead of tired to show this cause-effect relationship? And of course, we'll use so. And again, this simple exercise, and I teach non-linguistic students. That's why I have lots of problems with teaching them, to think about the process of learning and to be ready to notice some, for me, obvious features of the language. Yes, that's how I teach them cause and effect. Reference words are also part of these inference skills. And exercises like that or tasks like that in Year 2022, they deal with this, they aim at testing this particular skill. And when I come across exercise or task like this or passage like this in the text that I'm reading with my students, I'm absolutely happy because it helps me to show the students how parts of the sentences are connected within a paragraph or a passage, okay? We're not going to do the whole exercise. I would like you just to read this one. And in the chat box, please write what this stands for in the second sentence. Perhaps this is because if you miss food early in the day. So what this refers to. Okay. Trend and trend. Okay. So I've got two answers. A wish, is it wishing to be slim? Okay. More answers, please. Okay, yes, there are some correct answers. So you see, it's not an easy task, even for us, to do quickly. So this, or the tendency to be slimmer, is because if you miss food early in the day, eat, and what is eat in this sentence? It leads to mid-morning snacking. What is it? All right, this is easier. Yes, miss food early in the day. Okay, and if you're reading with a pen or pencil in your hands, then in this case, you circle these pronouns, and then you draw an arrow to the part of the sentence they belong to, or they sort of refer to. Okay, so you see that this exercise is also very engaging. And again, if you use your textbook and if you would like to use it as much as possible, then in this case, this type of exercise are going to be really, really very, very helpful. Okay, if we teach inference at the paragraph level, so in this case, we can ask our students to read a paragraph. Will you please read this one? Okay, and then we ask them to answer the following questions. In the chat box, just type the answer, the correct answer, just one letter, okay? A, B, C, or D. Okay, I with the task easily. Okay, yes, the correct answer is B. Take a picture of the bug, and of course we ask our students to explain why they think that B is correct. We also ask them why A, C, and D are not correct options, and we always ask them to read out a word or a chunk or some sentence from the paragraph that would prove that the answer is correct. With item 2, we also teach inferences because we don't have this information in the text formulated straightforwardly. And here the correct answer is okay. Yes, he's very curious. And what do I do next? We know that multiple choice is one of the most difficult items or examination tasks, but true, false, not stated is also considered to be one of the most difficult test items, sorry. Test items. So for us to teach students how to understand the difference between the information which is true, which is false, and which is not stated, we can very easily transform the multiple choice item into true, false, not stated item. Just imagine if A, B, C, and D were used for true, false, not stated, or not said if you like. So then A would be true, false, or not stated. He's helpful. Is it true, false, or not stated? See my point? Good. If B, if we interpret B as true, false, not stated, B, he's afraid of bugs. Is it true, false, not stated? Thank you very much. Yes, it's false because, and again, we ask students why it is false. Why he's not afraid of bugs. And again, our students are supposed to find this information in the text and prove that B is false. Okay, C is correct, as we remember. And D, he's a schoolboy. Again, if it is a true, false, not stated, then D would be good. And again, we ask our students to explain. So in this case, this non-stated piece of information becomes much more obvious for many learners, because you can explain to them many times what it means that the information is not stated in the text. Again, if the text is quite long, it's very difficult for them to understand that. All right, let's move on. So in fact, we are already doing assessment as learning, because when we ask our students to develop an item, a test item themselves, or when we ask them to analyze test items like that, so we ask them to get involved into the process of test writing. And one of the key exam skills to develop and practice ahead of the examination is, of course, the ability to paraphrase. Most listening tasks work on the basis of this principle. Students are expected to listen for ideas rather than for exact words. So it's also a kind of inferencing, as we understand. So some reading tasks also use paraphrased information. Well, in fact, paraphrasing is used in reading, writing, listening, and speaking. So that's why we sort of try to teach our students to be able to paraphrase things. And Matthew Ellman gave very good examples of how we can do that using mobiles in the classroom. But again, if we are just using the book and we would like to use as much as we can, we would like to make the most of it. So we can do the following exercise. Once you have completed a task and checked and confirmed answers, like the example here taken from a course book Think, level 5, teachers usually move on again to working with some other new task. However, for review and for the practice of the paraphrasing skill, we should return to this exercise because we already know the answers, but we shouldn't do it right away. We'd better do it a few weeks or months later, so the students do not do activity from their short-term memory. So I'm just going to show how it works, because I'm sure that you probably use this technique in your classroom. So the correct answer for item 1 is C. And C is he's a retired professional sportsman. So we can elicit from our students the same information expressed in as many different ways as possible. For example, they can say, he's a former professional athlete, or he once played sports professionally, and so on. If you would like to revise used to, we can also ask them to use this particular chunk in paraphrase, and they can say he used to be a professional sportsman. So we encourage learners to come up with as many ideas that they can come up with until they completely run out of them. So, and after then we can replay the recording one more time and to see if they remember the way this particular sentence, this particular answer was used in their real recording. So, and we see that the benefits of this activity are numerous. Well, if we had time, I would probably ask you to jot them down in the chat box, but again, I would like to move on, and I just will mention these benefits myself. So first of all, this activity reduces word spotting when students are trying to identify correct answers by whether or not the words from the option appear in the text. It also shifts from form to meaning. It also activates structural schemata, recalling different grammatical forms to express the same idea, used to, remember, and so on. Another activity which I like very much, well, I'll probably skip this one, though I like this one very much, is inverting the task. We often ask students to look for the keywords. But you know what I've noticed? Many teachers do not even know how to do that themselves, because when in my seminars I ask teachers to underline the keywords in the task, very often I see that they do not know how to do that, and they underline too many words, or they underline their own words. And we certainly have to explain what we mean by the keywords. This type of exercise can help our students to understand what keywords are and how they can help us cope with the tasks more successfully. So in this type of exercise, we ask our students to read the options. As you see, there are no questions here, right? Well, before the class, I prepare a PowerPoint like that, or if we work face-to-face, I prepare a copy of the task on a separate sheet for every student with all the questions deleted. So, and I ask the students to read the options, complete what they think the questions might be, and then we check the answers. Okay, if you look at, for example, question 2, will you please try to carefully read the options and try to figure out what the question is in the task number 2. Okay, the options are how little money all of them had, how friendly the people were to her. So, what the question might be? I usually give 2 minutes. Okay. Not an easy task to do. All right, let me show you the answers. What did Nadia notice most about people there? So you see that this is not an easy task to deal with, but the benefits of this task are also obvious. Well, first of all, learners gain an insight in how multiple choice questions are constructed. They understand what linguistic or logical connections exist between the distractors, incorrect options, and the key, the correct option, and between the options and the question. Again, remember we read with a pencil or highlighter in our hands. And of course, students practice question formation, but they do it in a meaningful way. By constructing their own questions, they provide themselves a framework for processing the text later. So try to use this type of exercise because you see it's very easy to construct. It doesn't require a lot of time and effort, but it's really, really very, very helpful. Also, you can do the same thing, but with three more variations of this activity. Okay, for example, we took uh, activity 3. From here we have done all the parts, and now we are going to invert the task, dealing with some extension ideas. So if we haven't done the task, if we haven't listened to the recording, we can delete the key option and ask the students to recreate it. Okay, so when students know that the missing option is the correct answer, they can focus on extracting the information from the text. They can ignore irrelevant details identified by the content of the distractors, and they can use their own words to express the idea. Okay, option 2, we have 3 options here. Ask students to write one more distractor. Okay, we have shown them how to do that. And in the previous exercises, they have learned how to do that. So now they can write one more distractor. When they have to write another distractor, they need to build up an awareness of how these options are created by test writers and how they should be related to the text and the key. This will help them to recognize the same tricks used in the real examination and to eliminate the convincing looking incorrect options much more easily. And one more inverted task version. So students write a summary for the text using the task. When they use the task items to recreate the content of the input text, then they practice their writing skills, as well as their skills in identifying the key points in the story essay, in this short dialogue, and so on. So also it's not an easy task for students to cope with because many students, they just read at the word level, they cannot infer the meaning, and that's why it might be quite difficult for them to do this. But it's worth doing it, believe me. And one more activity I ask my students to deal with, I ask them to prepare their own task, in which case they take the ownership of their learning. So I have borrowed this task from Cambridge Assessment Webinars, B1 Preliminary for School Reading Part 6. We ask our students to analyze this open-close exercise and ask them to identify what kinds of language are tested. Okay, could you please do the same for items 27 and 28? It's going to be very easy for you, but just for you to get the feel of the exercise. So, what kinds of language are tested in 27 and in 28? Just complete the task and you will see what is tested. We've now got the fantastic skate park ever. All right, we've got some answers. And these, yes, degrees of Comparison degree is good. And in 28, but we all agreed that we had a better skate. Good different answers. Okay. All right. So yes, we deal with superlatives, conjunctions, prepositions, relative pronouns, again conjunctions, auxiliary verbs. Okay. So when we ask students to analyze the text, we are killing so many birds, God forbid, with one stone. Well, first of all, they better understand what is tested, how it is tested, and when we ask them to develop an exercise like that, a test item like that, they can revise the language again because they have to look out for the items that they are going to delete from the text. They will revise them, they will think about them, and of course they will be very happy when they will have to share this activity with their peers, and we will be happy because we are going to have a good bank of test items developed by our students. Okay, and something I would like to finish up with, how to make use of recommendations of different exam tips that we find in our course books. Well, they are written by those very, very experienced people, experts in testing and assessment, raters, assessors, examiners, teachers. Okay, and they develop all these helpful tips. They develop student strategies for exam success. But very often do I notice that people just read them and forget. Again, how to make the most of this? Well, we can challenge our students like that. We can ask them to complete the phrases after we have doctored the text like that. I'll do the first one myself. Why do you say that? The second one is for you. So will you please complete the phrase starting with that's and finishing with the word point? Okay, that's an interesting point. Thank you. So I'll do the next one myself, I suppose so. And this is for you. It depends. Doesn't it? Right. And then we do this 3-to-1 challenge. Okay, we ask students to memorize 3 phrases, find a partner, then they read the questions and discuss them with the partner. They have 2 minutes to discuss these statements, and they are supposed to use their phrases. And then they change their partners, and this time they only have 1 minute to use the phrases and to discuss, of course, the statement. Okay, so this is just 1 page from a course book, and you can see how much we can squeeze out of it. We can add more activities to make the most of this gorgeous material, and at the same time to teach our students to work with this kind of material on their own. Okay, to summarize, so in order to maintain the balance between developing students as efficient communicators and successful exam takers, exam preparation works best when it is integrated into the classroom work, gradually building up the necessary skills for the exam alongside students' comprehension and productive skills and knowledge of grammar and lexics. From time to time, of course, students also need rehearsal opportunities where they can apply the skills and knowledge they learned under exam conditions. And to maximize their potential in examination, they also need to build up a repertoire of exam taking strategies and techniques in the construction of exam tasks, as well as receive practical advice in best practices. So with this, I would like to finish. These are my references. I hope many of you have recognized think, prepare, okay, complete the series which covers everything, and the open world series with a new level C1. I hope you enjoy working with them. So thank you, Maria. I'm finishing, and if there are questions, I'm ready to answer them.
Yeah. Alina Alexandrovna, thank you very much, dear colleagues. Are there any questions that you'd like to ask our speaker? Please go ahead. Meanwhile, I'd like to ask my question. Are there any psychological techniques how to prepare children? Maybe there are any tips, tricks?
Yes, yes, they are called effective strategies, starting with A, effective strategies. Yes, and there's a special branch in psychology which deals with test anxiety and test debilitating effects. Well, there are quite a few of these, and these may be quite simple, like go to bed early and don't eat chocolate or on the day of the examination, and they can be also quite easy. For example, don't stand next to the person who is nervous, because we know that anxiety is contagious. So and there are also some also tips that deal with correct breathing, for example. So quite a lot of them, which means that if we teach for examinations and if we know what makes our students feel anxious, feel nervous on the day of the examination, we'll certainly integrate these techniques into our teaching, everyday teaching. So and again, number one strategy, don't be nervous yourself, because when we are nervous, then our students are nervous too. And more often than not, we sometimes are more nervous about the examination than our students are, well, because we
Our
listen
listener, our
to them.
audience is asking, what's wrong with the chocolate?
Oh,
So
what's wrong with the chocolate? Because, well, what's wrong with the
yeah,
chocolate?
please specify. We're
It
eager to learn.
increases the levels of hormones in your blood. Well, that's what doctors and psychologists say.
So we should eat chocolate, or we shouldn't.
No, no. Well, you can eat, but don't eat too much.
Okay, so too
Yes.
much chocolate doesn't help.
No, it doesn't. It will make you even more nervous.
Dear
Okay.
colleagues, anything else? Please
Uh, Thank
share,
you.
ask us.
Yes, and I would like just to give a quick comment on this test anxiety. There's a test debilitating effect. If you figure out the root in this word, debilitating effect, so you understand that this is, the condition when you open your examination papers and you realize that you do not remember anything at all. It's a complete blackout. So, and this is something which happens very often with many kids, especially with girls, because we girls, we are so sensitive. So, and again, research shows that students don't have this test debilitating effect when they are in their in primary schools, and only when they reach grade 4 or 5 do they start having it. And this also, well, I think that this is because we teachers, we sometimes do too many tests with our students in the classroom. Uh, so that's why we also have to be aware of this and be very, very careful with giving them the activities that might help them, but on the other hand, may be detrimental to their psychological well-being.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Lyudmila Alexandrovna, looks like there are no more questions.
Okay, then I stop the presentation. Thank you.
Mhm.
So sorry, I have to leave you because I'm going to have classes with my master students. Thank you. I would like to thank the participants. Thank you very much. And thank you, Maria, for helping me.
Thank you very much for coming. We'll be happy to see you again next time. So it looks like Lyudmila Alexandrovna is leaving us, right? She just said that she is going to have the next class. So I will be presenting our next speaker. And this is going to be Jean Leloup. And she's going to speak with us from Colorado, Denver, from Air Force Academy. Jean is teaching Spanish there. She's a professor in the United States Air Force Academy, and she's today speaking with us about the online language classroom, building community and keeping students engaged. So Jean, if you please, could you try and turn on your camera microphone? Yes. Wonderful. Hello.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
We can hear you and we can see you. Looks like we will start 5 minutes earlier, which is also nice.
Okay.
That we'll have more time for your speech, and I'm sure our audience is going to have a lot of questions.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to try and share my screen. Let's hope this works. Okay, is that working?
Yes, it's perfect.
Okay, should I go ahead?
Yes, please.
I can see over in the right-hand side, I can see me and you and some other things. That's kind of distracting. Let me see.
Just a second. Is this better?
Nothing changed.
Oh, okay.
That's okay. That's okay. I can move it a little bit. I just moved it by itself. That's fine.
Okay.
So, good to go?
Yes. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Jean Leloup from United States Air Force Academy. Svetlana Vladimirovna Titova was telling about Jean on our first day, and she studied actually with Jean, right? She visited her classes. So it's very inspiring to see you here, Jean. It's wonderful. Thank you very, very much for joining us.
You're quite welcome. Thank you. And I'd say good morning for me and dobry večer. Is that right? Dobry večer?
Dobry večer. Yes.
Dobry večer. Okay, great. And welcome to my presentation for the second annual Education Week sponsored by Lomonosov Moscow State University. I am really honored to be talking with you because, first of all, it's always great to talk to other language teachers. I love that. I always learn from other language teachers. So it's a great honor for me to do that. And also because your university is so well known that I'm humbled by being here. But I also would like to thank Dr. and Dean Svetlana Titova for inviting me to give this presentation, because I think it's really, really important during this time when many, if not all of our regular and normal teaching practices to execute our profession have been turned completely upside down, right, by the pandemic of the past year. So, as Marie kindly said, I'm Dr. Jean Leloup. I am a professor of Spanish at the U.S. Air Force Academy. I think you can probably see my flag. This is my office. I've been here now for about 14 years, but before that, I was at the State University of New York, SUNY College at Cortland. And it's there where I met Dr. Titova, and we've been in contact ever since. At SUNY, I was a Spanish professor and a teacher education person. So I've been in education for a long time. Before that, I taught in public schools In Missouri, I taught grades 7 through 12. I was a Spanish teacher, I was a guidance counselor, and I coached 3 sports. So I've kind of done a lot of things in education over the years. But today, I want to talk about 2 main things: how to build community in a virtual classroom setting in the online language classroom, and then how to keep students engaged in that environment. And along the way, I'm also going to touch really just briefly about target language use in the classroom, because I think that's key to both of these concepts. So first, I hope to give you some ideas about how to build community in your online classroom that you either may not have thought about or maybe not used very much before now. I'm going to share with you what I have done and what I hope to continue doing that I've found to be effective. And I also hope to hear from you at some point in the chat or maybe later in the Q&A, what has been successful for you. Because as I said before, I love learning from other teachers, and I can always learn from other teachers, so that's fine. Second, I'd like to demonstrate a few tasks and activities that I have used that I believe keep students engaged in the class as much as possible. So as I mentioned, I've been teaching for a long time. I've actually been teaching more than 45 years. In levels grade 7 through postgraduate work at the university. And so after that much time in the classroom, I have, and I expect many of you also have, developed ways to connect with your students from day one. When we have our students right in front of us at arm's length, we can make those connections. It's much easier to develop those relationships. But that, as of a year ago in March 2020, we literally had to change our whole way of thinking, teaching, and learning. Overnight, we changed from face-to-face to remote online teaching, literally from Friday to Monday. Now, many of you might have been totally prepared for that shift in terms of knowledge of technologies required to teach in that environment, but many others of us, including myself, probably had varying degrees of technological skills that could be employed in the online classroom. So all of a sudden, I am teaching to a screen, but not to all my students, because depending on your learning management system, your LMS, there are only a certain number of videos you can see at one point. So here at USAFA, we use Teams or Blackboard, and each LMS has that limited camera shot. So that's just one more constraint we need to deal with. So not only am I not seeing all my students, but I'm having to look at them on a screen. So it's really important, I think, for those reasons, to develop a community in your classroom. So what is that community and why is it so important? I think you'll agree that in a face-to-face classroom, there is a community. So how do you establish that? We really want our students to feel included, as though they belong, that they are part of this class. This is particularly important in a language classroom where the anxiety level can be raised and can impede language production. And I would refer you right now to the studies carried out by Elaine Horowitz of the University of Texas at Austin. She's a leader in the field of foreign language anxiety, and I'll return to this in a few minutes. I also want to reference the previous speaker because she also mentioned anxiety in terms of testing. It's a real issue. I'd also like to underscore, whoop, hang on a minute. I'm having a malfunction in my own technology. Okay, there we go. I'd also like to underscore that building community online takes an effort on the part of everyone, not just us as the instructors. The onus really is now on the students, and they need to become even more responsible for their own learning and progress along their own interlanguage continuum. So I think you're getting the idea of what kind of a teacher I am in the classroom. I'm pretty energetic. I'm giving this talk right now standing up because in my classroom, I never sit down. I'm running around all the time. So even trying to communicate that online, I try to do that. I do tell my students that I'm 94 years old. My students are all pretty young. I think most students that are in their late teens, early 20s, anybody for them over 30 is just old. Okay, so when I tell them I'm 94, first, they're amazed. Second of all, when they have a day when they're not very energetic, or not very responsive in the class, I chide them and I say, hey, I am 3 to 4 times older than you, and I have more energy than everybody in this classroom put together. And that really usually makes them rise to the challenge. They're very competitive students here at USACA. So step 1, building a community online. Okay, we need to create a go-to place for our students. This place has to have clear, organized, welcoming information for your students in whatever learning management system you're using. This will be your students' go-to place for everything. I'm going to try and move this over just a little more so I can see my screen. Okay. You will have all the information you need to have in this one place. Your syllabus, your calendar, your online platform information. Everything should just be in one place, easy for students to find. And most important, I think, in this kind of environment is clear explanations and directions on how to get technology support. Who is that, where to find it, how to contact them, etc. Because frankly, we are language teachers. We are not IT people. We are not the technology people. If you are whiz at this and you can solve those problems, my applause to you. I'm pretty busy trying to teach my class every day, and I'm not 100% up on all technology. So my students need to know where to go to find out that information and to get back in the running. Sometimes we have connectivity issues here. They need to know who to go to get back in class right away, or they might get discouraged and maybe even give up. And we don't want that to happen. Communication. It is essential to building community. So you need to decide how you're going to communicate, excuse me, with your students. I would suggest that you figure out a standard way to communicate with your students, whether you're going to have an announcement board that they check daily, via email messages or Teams messages, if that's your platform. If you have lesson plan folders where they can go and look, any regular vehicle you want to use that your students will know right away to check and recognize. So in your go-to place, maybe you'll have a calendar, a course calendar that sets out all detailed assignments, upcoming evaluations, etc. So I have something like that that I put for my students. I create a calendar for every semester. I have all my evaluations listed on here. It's color-coded, so they know what are the quizzes, what are the oral evaluations, what are the writings. They know when they're coming up. They know why they have to perform, or what they have to perform and when, and that sort of thing. And I tell them, this is my Bible. I look at this every day to see where we're going, and they need to do that too. Okay. I think this next point is critical. You need to establish an instructor presence. We all need to have an instructor presence in our classroom. We're one of the reasons our students are going to show up. Okay. Talk to your students, give them an initial message about you, introduce yourself, give some background, where you're from, maybe, why you teach. Share whatever you are comfortable sharing at this point, because you're going to ask your students to do the very same thing. So what I do for my students at the beginning of my course is I show them a digital story about myself, because down the road, I'm going to ask them to do this also. Okay, I'm going to try, fingers crossed, to show you an example of this. So let's see how this will work. Okay, I'm going to stop this. Okay. I've lost my cursor. I'm getting it. Okay, here we go. Share screen. Okay, share sound. Okay, I hope this works.
Esta es una presentación sobre la doctora Lalou. ¿Quién es la doctora Lalou? Ella es de Ohio, es decir, ella es un Buckeye. Ella es profesora de español. Para hacer esto, ella ha estudiado mucho. Ella tiene títulos de Wittenberg University, de la Universidad de Missouri San Luis, de la Universidad de Ohio State. Tiene 2 títulos. A ella le gusta viajar. Ella ha viajado mucho. Incluso ella ha vivido en 3 países hispanohablantes. Primero, ella vivió en Nicaragua. Después, ella vivió en el Perú. Y más tarde, ella vivió en el Ecuador. Durante su vida de trabajo, ella ha visitado España muchas veces y ella ha trabajado y visitado Costa Rica más de 10 veces. ¿Qué le gusta hacer a la doctora? Bueno, le gusta hacer senderismo, le gusta leer mucho y le gusta cocinar. Y es notable que ella es vegetariana.
Okay, Maria, are we back? Are we good?
Yes, everything is working. Perfect.
And that one, okay, yay. Okay, all righty. So I'm gonna move this over so I can see. Okay, building community, more ideas. First of all, I would suggest meeting synchronously if at all possible. Of course, in person is better. Some of my colleagues this semester actually were able to teach in person. My classes are too big. We couldn't teach in person and have social distancing. We'd have to be on a big football field. So we had to teach online, but we needed to meet synchronously. And I think that is really key. Some of my students were telling me they have asynchronous classes. The instructor never shows up. In other words, what you're seeing for me, you never see. They just are listening to pre-recorded sessions. And it's really hard to keep your students engaged and build any kind of community in that situation. Okay, so what do? Even though we can't meet in person, I had all my students come to my office in pairs in person. I had them come for about 20 minutes to half an hour. I wanted to spend a little time with them so that they could get to know me, who I am, and I could get to know them. I also want to see them without their mask because when we do go back to regular teaching and walking in the hallways, I want to be able to recognize them. Everybody in the mask looks like a robber over here. And it's safe to do that right now. You can't see this probably, but I have a whole plexiglass set up on the other side of my desk. I look like a fake. So I do tell my students if they come in here, they can make deposits, but they cannot make withdrawals. Okay, anyway, they come in and I take their picture. As you can see here, I took this student's picture in my office. Some of my students could not come in person at the beginning of the semester because due to our space limitations here at USACA, we had to house some students in hotels in order to have quarantine rooms in the dorms. So those students living in the hotel couldn't come in. So I met with them individually on Teams. And then here's a photo of one of my students that I met with on Teams, and I took the photo for them. Okay. I also have them fill out information cards, and I'll talk a lot more about these later. These figure largely in what I do. Okay, we need to create a family. Okay, in addition to my students getting to know me and me getting to know them, they need to get to know each other. We need to have a real family so that we can have lots of good interaction in our classroom and reduce that anxiety. And that's what I'm going to talk about here. It will reduce the anxiety. If you have good student communication between students, among students, between you and your students, then that anxiety level will go way down and you'll get a lot more target language production out of your students. I'd like to refer you right now to this resource. It's a URL that goes to a foreign language methods course online that was developed at the University of Texas, Austin. This is where Dr. Horwitz of the Anxiety Studies works. These videos are great. They cover lots of different topics, but among them are also a couple videos on reducing anxiety in the foreign language classroom. And I would recommend those to you. Okay, another issue about building community is motivation. Why are your students taking this class? Why are they taking this language? Ask them, find out, and then use that information in your lessons. For example, if I have a student that wants to become something in the medical profession, wants to be a bilingual medical provider of some sort, then I'm going to take that information and keep it tucked away on a neuron in my head. And then when I'm looking for authentic materials to use in tasks and activities in my classroom, I'm going to make a special effort to find something that relates to that interest or other interests that my students do have. If you have students that are taking your class because they have to, it's a requirement, and they don't really want to be there, ask them what would make them happy about being there. And then maybe you can come up with some activities or ideas that will make them feel a little bit better about being in the classroom. And finally, when you share all this information about students and yourself, students can make connections with others based on this, and that helps to build community as well. Okay, I talked about information cards. This is what I use on my information card. This is what I ask for, and I'll tell you why. First, I want their full name. Then I want their date of birth. Now, if there's a cultural way to write month, date, year, that sort of thing from the target language that you teach, then you can teach that cultural information right here. So there is in Spanish, and I give them that opportunity. Next, I want to know where they're from. Sometimes students are even from my hometown, that's rare. Sometimes from my home state, or they're from places where I have visited, and I can make a reference to something I saw there. Anything that makes that personal connection between you and the student, that makes them want to be more engaged and more participatory in your class. I love animals. I want to know what their pets are. Do they have a dog, a cat, a horse, a snake, whatever, hamster, okay? And these are also good vocabulary building activities, by the way. And I want to know what kind and what their names are. And I'll use that information later. I'll show you how. Number 5 is really important for me. I want to know what previous experience they have with the target language that's outside the scholastic setting, outside the educational setting. For example, do they speak Spanish in the home? Because I'm Spanish, I'm going to use Spanish as an example. Do they speak Spanish in the home? Do they have Spanish-speaking relatives, parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles? Have they been on a mission trip to a Spanish-speaking country? Have they studied in a Spanish-speaking country? Have they gone on vacation in a Spanish-speaking country? Is their boyfriend or girlfriend a Spanish speaker? All that information is very helpful for me to know where they got their Spanish basis and what kinds of references and personal connections I can make with them. Number 6, all students have favorite foods and least favorite foods, and this is their big chance to really denigrate the cafeteria in the university. Lots of students don't like the cafeteria food here. That's a common theme. The cafeteria here is called Mitch's. It serves 4,000 students at a time. That's our student population. And so you can imagine these are not gourmet meals. So they have a lot to complain about with that. The next one, pastimes or hobbies. My students have 3 obligations on a daily basis. They have academic, they have physical education, and they have military responsibilities. So they are really booked full. They don't have much, if any, free time. So when I say, what are your pastimes or hobbies? What do you do in your spare time? They laugh. And I say, I know. Here you don't have a lot of free time, but in the real world, or when you're not at USAFA or in an ideal world, what do you like to do? And I get that information from them. And then also for me, very important, I ask them finally why they decided to come here to USAFA instead of a state university in their own state, their hometown community college, maybe a high-powered university like Harvard or Stanford or Rice, elsewhere. USAFA is not for everyone. It's a tough environment, and a lot of people don't want to be in the military or don't want to serve, so they don't want to come here. So I want to know what the motivation is for these students to come here. And that helps me understand them even more. Okay, so what do I do with these information cards? Okay, well, the first thing is easy, easy, easy. I send emails to people on their birthday. I love birthdays. You can imagine with 95 years of birthdays, I celebrate all the time. Anyway, every time my student has a birthday, I send them a card. I keep these cards for all the years that my students are here at USAFA. Even though they're no longer my students, I have these in a wire basket on my desk, and every morning I come in and they're in chronological order. So every morning I come in and I look and I see, oh, Fulano has a birthday today. And I have a set email with a lot of graphics in it, pretty exciting. And I send it out to these people. I have to tell you, it takes about no time and it is so appreciated by these students. I almost always get thank you emails back. And they also say, how did you remember? Well, I didn't remember. I have them on a card, but they forget about the cards. They think I'm omniscient. That's fine with me. That's okay. They really like that and they appreciate that. Just the other day, I got an email back that said, Doctora, you're the only professor I have ever had that acknowledged my birthday. Thank you so much. Made that person's day. I'm happy. Okay. All that information that we talked about that I asked for on the information card, I incorporate that information into my activities and my tasks. So, for example, well, let me talk about this first. Here at USAFA, students are required to attend class. Isn't that great? That's like a dream. They must attend class. It's a military duty. Therefore, if they are not going to be in class, they have to email me ahead of time and ask permission to miss class. This is an educator dream. It doesn't happen in real life universities. So when I'm explaining this in my beginning couple days of the course, I will use one of my students as an example. For example, I have Senor de la Cruz. He plays water polo. So Senor de la Cruz needs to write to me and say, Doctora Lulu, I have a water polo event competition this Friday in San Diego. May I please have permission to miss class? And of course, I'll respond and I'll say, Senor de la Cruz, thank you for the message. Of course, you may have permission. Good luck with the competition. If you have any questions about what you're going to miss when you're gone, please let me know when you get back. Okay? If I'm going to use, I have a grammar point or something that I know is particularly kind of tricky, I will use a student as an example and their interest to kind of get it across. For example, I have a swimmer in one of my classes. So instead of saying, okay, today we're going to talk about subjunctive and doubt and that sort of thing, I'll say, clase, guess what? This morning, Senorita Jokum told me that last night she swam the English Channel. And then I'll say, Senorita Jokum, I doubt that you have swum the English Channel. That's the grammar point, but I'm using Senorita Jokum. I'm using her athletic ability and her hobby, and she's happy to show up in the class, and it's great. Okay. Then finally, what I also do is I make scavenger hunts. I take some of those information pieces and I make it maybe into a list of maybe 20 things for scavenger hunt, and I'll put it in a list, and then I'll put my students in bogs. Now, bogs for me are breakout groups, bogs. Okay, if these kids were in my class, if these students were in my class, we would be up and running around the room and talking to people, but now we're kind of running around the screen talking to people. So I'll put them in the bogs. I'll give them 3 or 4 minutes. They have to talk to this group of people in their bog. Then I'll swap out the bogs 2 or 3 more times so they get a lot of conversation and a lot of conversation partners with different people. Okay, and they find out a lot about their classmates, and it's more building of community along the way. Okay, so that's what I do with information cards. They work great for me. I've been doing this, golly, since the 70s, when I taught in public schools. It's great. Okay, now I'm going to talk to you about a new thing I learned, and that is the Bitmoji and an activity to create more community in the classroom. In February, I attended, in quotes, the spring conference of the Colorado Congress of Foreign Language Teachers meeting. And during that conference, I went to a session by my colleague, Dr. Alegria Rivadeneira. She is at the Colorado State University in Pueblo, which is about an hour south of here. She is a terrific teacher, wonderful colleague, and she had an activity. Well, she had a great presentation, and I'm looking at her slides while she's talking, and I'm thinking, wow, she's got an avatar on there that looks like her. All of those avatars look like her. How did she do that? Well, she calls that she has an activity that she calls birds of a feather. And I wrote her and I said, can I please talk about your birds of a feather activity? Because I love it and I'm going to use it from now on. She said, oh, please. So what you do is this. Well, and she was also saying things like something moji. Well, I know what an emoji is. I'm not that far out of it, but I never heard of Bitmoji before, but I finally figured it out. So I went to bitmoji.com, like you see on the screen, and I figured out how to make a Bitmoji. So for this activity, students make their own Bitmojis. It's a Google Chrome extension to create personal avatars. It's free. Probably all your students already know how to do it. I didn't, but I do now. Then they make a student ID card with their Bitmoji and 3 things about themselves that they want their peers to know. Okay, so here's my Bitmoji. Here's my student ID card. Hola, yo soy la doctora Lulu. I live in Colorado. I like to hike, and I'm a pescatarian. That's my Bitmoji and my student ID card. Okay, here's an example of Alegria's students. So they all, as you can see, they have their own Bitmojis, personalized. They have their introductory sentence, and they have 3 things about themselves that they want their peers to know. Great, great activity. Okay, and here's Dr. Rivadeneira. She plays the drums. I thought that was great. Okay, so what can we do with these student ID cards? Well, we can use them as a first week introduction to class. We can have each student, after they see all these ID cards, we can have them find 3 people with whom they have something in common. Then they can write a mini essay or a paragraph explaining why they picked each person. And finally, they can invite one of those people to do something that they would both like to do based on their common interests. And this is just another issue of community building. Okay, great. I love that activity. All right, we talked a little bit about digital storytelling before. I showed you my digital storytelling. I tell my students now it's their turn. Each student is going to create a 2 to 3 minute video in which they introduce themselves. I give them options. I tell them they can use PowerPoint, Photo Story 3, Flipgrid, anything that's free. I don't want them to have to buy anything. Even in your learning management system, like Teams, you can do this in Teams as well. Okay, so what they have to do in this project, they introduce themselves with photos, visuals, not much if any text, because really, they are talking to the class. They are not reading to the class. They are talking to the class. I also ask my students to take notes during this presentation, and I'm taking notes too, because afterwards I'm going to quiz them and ask them, well, who lives in Philadelphia, or who lifts weights, or who has a hamster, or who whatever. Or I could take some of that information and turn it into a mini scavenger hunt for the next class period, just like we talked about earlier. Now, of course, you need to have a rubric to grade, and you need to show your students the rubric ahead of time. Okay, fingers crossed, I'm going to try and show you my rubric. So this means I have to get out and come back in. Hang on a minute. Okay, can you see the rubric, Marie?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, so this is my rubric. I'm checking them on comprehensibility, fluency, pronunciation, vocabulary, grammar, and content. And I tell them for each amount of points, it's pretty well laid out, pretty clear what they have to do to get those points. So that's my rubric. Okay, now I'm going to try and show you a couple examples. Okay, a moment to go. Okay, so let's hope this works.
Isabella Malali y hoy me gustaría hablar sobre mi vida. Para empezar, estas son fotos de mi familia. Mi mamá se llama Cristina y ella son una maestra de la escuela secundaria. Mi papá se llama Kevin y él trabaja del cuerpo de marines. Tengo una hermana mayor, se llama Gabby. Gabby va a la Universidad de Minnesota y ella rema y pienso que este es un deporte interesante. Finalmente, mi gato se llama Bobo y me encanta él con todo de mi corazón. Soy de Neenah, Wisconsin. No hay mucho que hacer en Wisconsin, pero las personas son fantásticas. Mi papá estaba en los cuerpos de marines por 30 años y él vive en California para su trabajo. Y hay una foto de mi familia y como pueden ver, yo tenía pelo horrible de niño. Durante la escuela secundaria, yo practiqué las artes marciales, específicamente karate, taekwondo, y me encantan los deportes. También yo levanté pesas para un deporte y yo gané el campamento estatal. También durante los veranos yo trabajé en una piscina y fue un trabajo muy, muy interesante. También me encanta viajar y comer comida bien. La foto de la comida es de Seattle y la otra foto es de Gales. Ojalá que hayan disfrutado escuchar a mi historia y a mi vida. C4C, Isabella Malali.
Okay. I had another one to show you, but I'm afraid I'm going to run out of time because I have a lot of activities I want to show you. So I'm going to skip the next one, but that was just an example. So from that now, I now know that that student won the state championship in weightlifting. She's martial arts. She's got X, Y, and Z going on in her family, and I can use all that information in my lesson. Okay. Okay, I want to talk for about 2 nanoseconds about target language use. I really think it's important to use the target language as much as possible in the classroom, and I think that helps keep students engaged. I'm sure in Russia you have an organization, national organization that covers all your language teachers. We do in the United States, it's called the American Council on the Teaching of Foreign Languages, or ACFL. And I'm sure both of these organizations put out position statements on issues related to foreign language teaching and learning. The ACFL position statement on target language use recommends 90% plus use at all levels of instruction. Okay, and the other thing I want to underscore is that that is 90% used by both teachers and students. Okay, so it's not just us using the target language, it's also the students. What's another benefit of using the target language all the time? Well, I've seen people, I used to observe student teachers in schools, and I would see teachers speaking in the target language, and then as soon as they saw the deer in the headlights look on their students' faces, they got panicky and they immediately translated everything into English, or whatever the L1 is in the student. Pretty soon your students learn not to listen to the target language. We don't want that. We want them to be engaged with the target language. So my classes are immersion classes. I never ever speak English. In those emails I mentioned earlier, if my students write me in English, I return them and I say, no entiendo. Okay, they have to write me in Spanish. They have to talk to me in Spanish. That's just the way it is. Okay, and that's, I think, how we improve our students' language proficiency. Okay, so let's move on now really quickly to how we can keep our students engaged. I think we can all agree that it's really difficult to keep anybody engaged on the screen for a significant amount of time. So let me stop right now and say thank you for watching this far. I really appreciate it because you don't know me and I'm just one little square person here. So I really appreciate it. We really need to make sure we are creating the most engaging activities we can for our students. But I want to remind us that it's also the students' responsibility to take control of their own learning. It's the old, you can take a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. I could stand on my head in my classroom, and if that student doesn't want to be engaged, they won't be engaged. So I want to mention here high leverage teaching practices. And I'm going to have a quote here from the article Halas, which I'll have later on in my reference list. High leverage teaching practices are a core set of teaching practices that are said to promote higher gains in student learning over other teaching practices. These are research-based practices that work, okay? And of course, we have Archimedes here with his lever. Give me a lever long enough and a fulcrum on which to place it, and I shall move the world. We want to leverage our best teaching practices to get the most bang for our buck. So here I've listed a few high leverage teaching practices, some of which you've already talked about: building a classroom discourse community, facilitating target language comprehensibility, and designing tasks for meaningful interaction. These are not all the high leverage teaching practices, and in fact, we don't know all the high leverage teaching practices yet for our field. So that's a fertile area for research if anyone is interested in that. But these are certainly some. Okay, so let's move on to some ideas and activities that demonstrate these high leverage teaching practices. So, of course, we want our students using the target language as much as possible. But you know, sometimes our students just don't have the right words or they don't have the vocabulary. So I think it's crucial that we teach circumlocution as a skill. We're never going to know all the words in our own or any other language, so we need to know how to circumlocute. It's an excellent skill to learn and practice, and it's a skill that increases as their language proficiency increases. These are activities that generate a lot of interaction in the target language, and you can start very simply at the word level. So my students like to play pyramid or pyramide. They like to play that, in which I give student a list of 5 words, and student B has a list of 5 different words. And they have to describe their words to each other so that the other person finally guesses those vocabulary words. They're at the end of the class, sometimes I have the students circumlocute to me. They like to do that too. They like to stump me. But it's a really good skill for kids to learn. And it's also an ego booster when you find yourself finally in the situation where, wow, I actually got my point across to that native speaker. It's great, okay? So you also might use lots of visuals, and the previous presenter talked about this. Use visuals in your classroom. Use engaging visuals in your classroom. Talk about, what is this? How do I use this? And use really different kinds of things that you wouldn't normally know how to say in your target language, but you can talk, your students can learn to talk around them. From that, we're going to move on to mini scenarios. This is, you can have students imagine they're in a target language country, they're traveling, something's happened, they don't have X, they need Y, something doesn't work in their hotel room, that sort of thing. So they can learn how to get their point across by using circumlocution. Because really, if you think about it, a lot of our language programs, at least in the United States, we have some language at the beginning and then they study literature. Well, a lot of this vocabulary is not in the literature. And I'll give you good examples. In 2016, my husband and I were fortunate enough to walk the Camino de Santiago across Spain. We walked about more than 900 kilometers. So you can imagine how many different hotel rooms we stayed in. Well, the showers in Europe are different than the showers in the United States. Now, I know the word for shower, but I don't know the word for different parts of the shower and contraptions and that sort of thing. So I had to circumlocute frequently when we couldn't figure out how the heck to make that shower work. And at the end of the day, after you walk 30 kilometers, that's what you want, is a hot shower. Okay, I guarantee you, I didn't learn how to say my shower or my toilet are broken from reading the Quixote. Okay, there you go. All right, give them visual prompts like the previous presenter talked about also. Have them tell a story. Give them parameters. Put them in groups or bugs. Give them a prompt. It's a drawing, a photo, a sentence fragment. Tell them how long you want the story to be, if you can have dialogue, no dialogue, if you want it to take place in a certain period of time. And you can even have them create a story with a cliffhanger. That's a great motivator because they can come up to this point, and then the rest of the students can finish that story in their own creative way, resolving that cliffhanger. You can do this in your bogs, on whiteboard, or in the Jamboard, and we'll talk about Jamboard in a little bit. Okay, so more visuals, more things, who, what, where, why, invent, create, and you can use anything for this. Personal photos. This is a picture of my cat on the stove in upstate New York when I lived there. I know that's kind of disgusting. I didn't cook that. This is a picture of a sloth that I took when I was visiting Costa Rica. Here's a picture of my students making arepas when I was teaching in Merida, Venezuela. You can use cartoons, all kinds of things. All kinds of things are very, very good for prompts. Okay, next activity. This is an activity I use in my chapter of my book that we're teaching art, okay? And this is an activity that we talk about visual art and music as art form. The grammar focus here is the superlative. So I'm gonna move on and show you the English. This is a superlative, but really I don't care about the superlative. I do care about the superlative, but I want the students to be able to express their opinions about what they think is best and the worst. So I'm gonna use their ideas and their thoughts about best artist, best musical group, best singer, worst song, all that sort of thing. And the way I set this up, they all have these sheets, they're in their bogs, and they all know that it's not just a one-word answer. You can't say, who is the best artist? Picasso. Not good enough. Who is the best artist? Picasso. Why do you think that? I think that because they have to have a conversation. That's the way this kind of activity will work. They have to expand. Okay, here's an information gap task that uses a cultural icon from Spanish. It's a tres leches cake. A torta de tres leches. I love this cake. It's great. It's got 3 kinds of milk, regular milk, evaporated milk, and sweetened condensed milk. It's delicious. I adapted this activity from Dr. Halas, whom I mentioned earlier. So basically the activity is this. Student A has a list of ingredients for the cake. Student B has a list of ingredients that's in that person's house. Here's the task. They have to talk back and forth, okay, have interaction so that they know what ingredients they have on hand, what they need to buy, and they also have to talk about quantities. And this is also a good idea, a good chance for them to maybe use translation of measurements, because you probably know in the United States we're one of the few, if only, countries that uses ridiculous measurements, and we don't use the metric system. So they might have to do that because the Spanish recipes all use the metric system. So that's a great information gap task. Here's another one I use in my chapter on jobs. Many of my students haven't applied for a job before, some of them have. So the materials I need are job applications from the United States, my students, and job applications that you can get online from target language countries. For this kind of activity, you need a lot of linguistic know-how because there are vocabulary words on these job applications that students may or may not know. You also need cultural know-how because there are things that show up on target language job applications that will never show up in the United States, or maybe show up here and will never show up in Russia, that your students won't be aware of, and you need to call their attention to that. So here's what I give them. This is a job application for McDonald's. McDonald's, it's everywhere in the world, but it sure the heck is in all over the United States. I got this job application in Columbus, Ohio, but the job application happens to be in Spanish, and my students are really surprised about that. I'm not quite sure why, since we have a huge Spanish population in the United States. But anyway, I show them this job application. We talk about what shows up in here, and then I show them a target language job application. This is one from Uruguay, okay? I'm very careful to talk to them about new vocabulary that they might not know. and even vocabulary that I think they should know that they don't. For example, domicilio. We have a word like that in English, domicile, it's a cognate, but for some reason, my students don't know that word. Okay, other things like mutualista, other kinds of issues. So we also talk about cultural items that might show up here. Credencial cívica, we don't have that in the United States, but they do in Uruguay. Then I put my students in groups and I have them compare these two and talk about what's similar, what's different, and why that might be. A lot of job applications in Latin America ask for things like height, weight, age, and marital status. And you will never see those things show up on job applications in the United States. And we talk about why that is. And it takes a little while sometimes, but finally some student will say, oh, I get it. I give them the example. Okay, I'm 94 years old. I'm certainly qualified for this job. But there's another person who's 42. And that person is not quite as qualified, but they're applying for the same job. Who's going to get hired if I have to tell you how old I am? The other person, because at 94, I might not be around that long. So age discrimination is just one thing in the United States that we have laws against, and that's why we have those differences in the job applications. And those are eye-opening things culturally and good for fertile discussion from the students. Okay, let's move on to puzzles. Who doesn't like a puzzle? Okay, jigsaw puzzles. Jigsaw puzzles are great, 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 especially for higher level language discussion and for literature. So let's take example of maybe a short story. I'm going to take a short story and I'm going to divide it into 5 pieces. And then I'm going to have my my students divided into 5 groups. I'm going to have the group of the 1s, the 2s, the 3s, the 4s, and the 5s. Those are the expert groups. Each group has a piece of the story. They have to decipher, decode, make meaning, and figure out a way to present in general what goes on with their section. Then after X amount of time, I will put those people back in home groups. Each home group has a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, and a 5. And that's where those students will share that information. And they are very attentive because they want to know what the other groups learned, because they want to know what goes on in that story. It's a great attention grabber and keeper, okay? Here's another one. Using the site called halfacrossword.com. This site will split your vocabulary list into 2, and you can give half to your student A, half to your student B, and they can talk back and forth and circumlocute to fill in a greater puzzle. Now, obviously, you have to tell them, you cannot say number 1 down is X. They can't do that, okay? They have to talk about the word, and if they don't know how to describe that word, you can scaffold for them. For example, if the word is milk, they might say, we get this liquid from cows. I don't want them to say number 1 is milk. I want them to say number 1 horizontal is, we get this liquid from cows. Then the person will understand. So these are examples, of how to scaffold interaction. And then at the end, the student, of course, says, what do you think that is? Okay, all right, next activity. This is a logic puzzle I got directly from Dr. Halas. I asked her for her permission. She said, please go ahead and use it. It's from an animal rescue center in Costa Rica. It's a logic puzzle. Student A has a certain amount of information from the puzzle and student B has the other information from the puzzle. When they talk to each other, they can put the puzzle together and solve the logic puzzle, okay? Great idea. Okay, what am I doing on time? Oh, gotta move fast. Okay, all right. Oh, one more, just really quickly. This is kind of along the lines of just fun to do, but I do this in the chapter when I have body parts. So I'll walk into class one day or I'll get online one day and I'll say, this morning at 3 a.m., I heard the weirdest noise. So I went out on my balcony. My house has a balcony, yay. I went out on my balcony and you won't believe what I saw in my front yard. I can't even tell you what it was. I have to describe it and you're gonna have to draw it. And then my students draw. It's a listening proficiency activity. I give them line by line by line. It's also an interaction, a negotiation of meaning. For example, if I say something about eyebrow and they don't know the word for eyebrow in Spanish, and they'll say, what does that mean? And I'll say, well, it's on your face, it's on your forehead, and it's hairy. And we do that, okay? So in the end, they can compare what they've drawn with what I've drawn to see how they did. And then you can extend that to another day and they can draw their own and share that with a partner. Great activity, and it's good for listening comprehension. Okay, oh, I forgot, here's another one. How do you snack? This is another great activity. How do you snack? Everybody snacks, okay? So here's the activity. You list 6 to 8 of your own snacks and determine whether you're gonna be sweet or salty. And then your partner does the same thing, okay? Then you rate yourself on the sweet zone to the salty zone, you rate your partner, and then you see if your ratings match. A lot of good interactivity in this task, and also a lot of personalization. They're talking about things that they really like. So how do you snack? That's how you snack. Okay. All right, now we're gonna go to Jamboard. Okay, I didn't know about Jamboard till last summer. I am so happy to know about Jamboard. A lot of you might know about Jamboard. Some of you might not. If you don't, then you're gonna be so happy to learn about this. Jamboard has multiple uses. You can use any theme you wish. It's great for collaborative tasks. It's very great for creative ventures for your students. And I'm going to show you some quick examples and then we're going to go to the jam. Okay, so in my chapter on community, we talk about stores. And one of the recordings that they listen to for listening practice is a radio interviewer interviewing a man who owns an ice cream parlor in Puerto Rico. And that ice cream parlor has 800 flavors. Now, these are not just chocolate, vanilla, and strawberry. These are smoked trout, arroz con pollo, all kinds of crazy, crazy flavors. So my task for my students is this. First of all, I can't believe that they would eat ice cream like that, but I actually have done that. Not the one in Puerto Rico, but there's one in Mérida, Venezuela, the same thing. And I ate smoked trout ice cream. It was amazing. It was delicious. It tastes like smoked trout, but the texture was ice cream, so it was kind of cognitive. It was great. So they're back here, and I always give them a model. So here's my model. They need to, in their bugs and their groups, come up with a new ice cream flavor. And then they need to write a really quick publicity blurb or statement that will attract clients to come to their ice cream parlor and eat this ice cream. So my new ice cream flavor is called Italian Dinner. Okay, and it tastes like spaghetti and meatballs. Okay, so here's my little blurb. It says, enjoy a little of Italy here in Puerto Rico with Italian dinner ice cream. The flavor of spaghetti and meatballs. Delicious. So that's the model I give them. This is what my students came up with. This group came up with the flavor of cheeseburgers. Makes me ill to think about it. Okay, this group came up with chips and salsa. A little more Latino. This group came up with toasted ravioli flavor, and they all have their concomitant blurbs. I'm not going to go into those right now because you got the idea. This one came up with ice cream that tastes like sushi. All right, and this one came up with ice cream that tastes like breakfast, bacon and eggs. Okay, another activity I had them do was an activity with different stores and different items. So I had them think of an event or a celebration. Then I had them think of 5 things they had to either buy or do to get ready for that event or celebration. Then they had to write those things down. And then the rest of the class had to guess what the stores were that they had to attend and what the event was in the end. So for here, this is my model again. Invitations from a stationery store, ice cream from an ice cream store, a cake from a pastry store, how do you say that? Oh, bakery. They had to make arrangements with a priest at the Catholic Church. That was another vocabulary word. And they had to buy a commemorative art toy at the toy store. So my event was, of course, baptism. Okay, so here's what my students came up with. This group had rings from a jewelry store, flowers from a florist, a bride's dress from a department store, a cake from a pastry store, invitations from a stationery store, and this, of course, was for a wedding. Here's one for, there's a turkey here from the meat store, football from the toy store or the sporting goods store, pumpkin pie from either the grocery store or a bakery. These are your ancestors. I don't think you go to any store to get them, maybe the cemetery, I'm not sure. This, of course, is Thanksgiving, what we celebrate here in November. And then finally, here's one with flowers, chocolate, etc. This was for Valentine's Day. Okay, so I think, okay, so now what I want to do really quickly, I hope we have time. We have time, Marie, to go to Google, to go to the
Yes,
Jamboard?
of course. Yes.
Yes, okay, great. Okay, so I want to go to the Jamboard and show you how this works really quickly for those who've never seen it. So you go to Google Chrome, in the upper right-hand corner, you have these dots. You click on them and you go down and you find the logo and then you just start jamming. Okay, so I'm going to get out of here. Hope this works. Get out of here.
So do you want me to send the link?
Not quite yet.
Okay.
I don't want to preempting me. Okay, hang on a second. I'm going to get in there. Let's see, Jamboard for practice, Jamboard demo. Okay. Where's my Jamboard demo? It went away. Okay, I gotta go out. I gotta go out and come back in. Usually that's what happens when this happens.
Yeah, we can see.
Oh, you can? Oh yeah, here we are. Oh, great, thank you. Okay, so really quickly, this is Jamboard. This is how it works. You have all these tools down this side. This is a pen. You've got different widths and different colors. Let's use this one and just, you can do whatever you want. If you don't like what you did, you can erase it. Or if that's too slow, clear the frame. But clear the frame clears everything, okay? Then what I always have my students do is, is put their names in a sticky note so that I know who's in the group. You can make these sticky notes bigger or smaller. You can move them around. You can tilt them, that sort of thing. All right, if I want to do an image, I can go here. You can upload it from your own computer, or you can put an image here. Oops, better spell it right. Okay, I like this image. I'm going to put this one in here. I hope. There's my ice cream. All right, and then if I want to say what it is, I have a text box and I label it. And then if I want to really point out that I have a text box here, I'm going to use one of these shapes. And I'm going to do this. And I showed you before, you can swirl them. And then there's my jam. Okay, and it looks like this. How else have I used this? I've used it with artwork. And then here's the final tool that I like. It's kind of a laser, but it goes away. This is a Velázquez painting from the 17th century. Here's an updated version by whom? Picasso. And here's another updated version by Dali. And I have different questions there. And it's just like when I did with the job interview and applications, I have them talk about what's different, what's the same, and that sort of thing. Okay. I want to show you one more activity, which is going to be cartoons. I like to use cartoons that have no dialogue because then my students can create. There's one that's very old in the United States, but I love it. It's called The Little King. Here's an example. I use this one when I'm trying to teach preterite and imperfect, and I have my students write examples under each story cell, and either the preterite and imperfect based on what they're trying to say. Okay, here's another example. Here's an example of where I have the different pieces of the comic, but they're out of order. So you can move these. You can move these. Okay, et cetera, and then they can go ahead and label them. Or here's the same cartoon with an old fable with a new twist. Usually it is the tortoise that always wins, but sometimes the hare is right behind him. In this one, the hare has disappeared. Look what happened. It must be the Ninja Turtles. They can write a story about that as well. Okay. Now, okay, Marie, send the link, please. Okay, I've created a couple pages in here for the jam. I've got several pages for English. I've got pages for French, Spanish, Arabic, Chinese, German, Russian, Portuguese, Japanese, and any other language you want. Marie is putting the link to this in the chat. If you've never played around with this, I want to give you 2 or 3 minutes to join here and do some creating. using these tools. So go ahead right now, join in. There, somebody's already in there. That's great. Get in there and, oh, got rid of my thing. If you clear this thing, wait a minute. If you do clear frame, it clears everything. So you got to be careful. Yes, you can set background. Please go ahead, play around for 2 or 3 minutes, and then I'm going to wind up. Okay. And while you're doing that, I'm just going to look at
Jean,
other ones.
and we have Svetlana online, so she's also, yes, she's also watching. So if he can,
okay,
say a word.
Hi, Svetlana. I'm happy to see you. I'm not seeing you, but I'm happy that you're here. Hey.
Hi, Jean. Hi, my fantastic lady. Hi.
Hey,
I'm
hey,
so
how are
thrilled.
you? You have what?
I'm so thrilled to see you. I haven't seen you for ages. But what I would like to say that you haven't changed a lot since I saw you. It was
you
last time in Moscow.
I thought maybe you had a facelift. No,
no,
but you look so young.
No. No, I haven't yet, but I'm thinking about that.
No, you don't need it. You don't need it. Okay, well, I see that people are playing. That's good. That's great.
I'm jogging. As so you taught me to jog, so I'm jogging. So dear colleagues, this lady was so shy and modest, and she didn't say anything about herself. But she has the highest title in the United States of America. I mean, she is Professor Emeritus. So this is a kind of a distinguished professor. This is a high status of any professor in the United States of America. More than that, she was co-founder of a fantastic online project, web project, which was called FL Teach, Foreign Language Teaching, together with Bob Pontirio. And it was in the 1990s. Can you imagine? In our country, nothing, I think that nobody had heard at that time about the internet. And it was, I bet, the first project of such kind in the United States of America. And they, together with Bob, they had been supporting this particular online project for FL teachers for so many years. And one more thing is that she inspired me to launch my own project. So Learn Teach Web was inspired by Jean Leloup. So you have a rare opportunity to meet Jean today. Thank you very much for your fantastic speech. Some people say today in our chat that I wish we were your students, you know, because you're so energetic. And if I'm not mistaken, you were standing throughout the whole presentation. Am I right?
Yes.
You were not sitting. Yes. Yeah, you are standing. Yeah. Although, as you said, you are 94 years old.
Okay. You are too kind. Thank you so much. And your Learn Teach Web is phenomenal. So if I had even one smidge to do with that, I am honored beyond belief. Okay. And I'm going to try I need to close this session out because these people are going crazy on the jam. Okay. All right. I'm going to stop sharing my jam. Thank you. And I'm going to go back to my, let me see. I'm going to go back to my, okay. Oops. Okay. So I hope you had a little bit of fun playing around with the jam. I tell you, my students love this jam board. Every day, they want us to use it every day. I don't use it quite every day, but when we do, they say, when are we going to jam again? So they're really excited. I want to point out a couple resources for you that hopefully might help. I've mentioned Dr. Ann Halas several times today. She is an incredibly creative person. She gave the workshop last summer that introduced me to Jamboard. She has a book here called Practical Creativity, Activities and Ideas for Your Language Classroom. Here's another one, interactive task. It's pretty skinny, it's really small. There's another one here by Drs. Victoria Russell and Catherine Murphy Judy. They are experts in online teaching. They've been teaching online for 10 years, not just months. They are experts. This is a great book, great resource. It just came out last fall. And then we mentioned High Leverage Teaching Practices. These 2 volumes by Drs. Glisson and Donato. That's also there. So here's my list of references. And is there a way I can get this PowerPoint to you, Svetlana or Marie? Maybe people would want to have the references. I'm not sure.
Yes, it would be great. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you very much. Yeah, it would be great.
Okay.
While people just trying to get together after such an inspiring speech, I have a question for you. You were absolutely right. I mean, today I was late a little bit because I was present at another conference. It was the conference for the teachers of Russian as foreign language, for our teachers. And I asked them a question about, I was talking about interactive community, practically the same you did, about the necessity to create this interactive environment to support somehow with the help of different kinds of interaction, tasks, feedback, assessment, etc., etc. And I asked them a question. They were Russian teachers. Tell me, please, from your viewpoint, what is the basic difference between online courses and traditional face-to-face courses, but not from technical point of view, but from the methodology, methodological point of view, from the point of view of pedagogy, theoretical framework, as it were. Do you know what they answered? They said, so one just guy, he impressed me. He said, the basic difference is that in online courses, students don't have to answer the questions the teacher usually asks them. Can you imagine? I was so surprised. I said, how can it be? So they are many people think that online courses, that's what you prepare, tests, texts, different online links, and there is all. You don't have to do anything. I mean, you don't have to communicate with students, you don't have to support them, you don't have to provide feedback, you don't have to just motivate them. If you created something and published it on the web, so that's what you have to do, and that's it, you know. It was so funny. And you raised today a very urgent problem. Now, it is really very important problem, how to inspire our teachers to believe and to understand that it's not necessary just to create online courses on Moodle, but also to support and create this online community with the help of your own efforts and tasks and your own personal fuel, as it were, yeah? So my question for you will be the following. You haven't said anything about peer tuition, but from my viewpoint, peer tuition is one of the techniques which helps us to create engaging and very interactive environment. Have you ever tried to use peer tuition with your students?
You're going to have, you know, I have to plead 100% ignorance. You're going to have to explain what that term means.
Peer tuition, when you ask one student to teach the group of students, or when you ask one student when they are in pairs or when they are in groups, yeah. So you are not a teacher, he will be a teacher, yeah, and he will be teaching. It's called peer tuition, yeah.
Okay, thank you. That's a new term for me, but I know the technique and the method, and I would say yes, and probably several times during the semester, I'll have my students in their blogs, and each different blog will have something that they're going to have to present back to the class. In terms, so that I am not the total fount of knowledge. I don't want to be the fount of knowledge. They have a book. The grammar explanations are in English, but I think research also shows that when someone teaches someone else, they learn it better themselves. So I have them in groups to come up with maybe come up with some activities and ways to explain this one grammar point that we're going to be working on, and then they can do it in their own language at the level of the students. And so, no, I think that's a very, very, very effective way to go.
Okay, thank you very much. And also, there are some questions. Maria published the question in the chat. Your example in Spanish inspired me to continue my Spanish studies. Which Spanish textbooks do you use for beginners and intermediate students? She's going to demonstrate.
So this is embarrassing because I use my own textbook.
It's not embarrassing, it's just vice versa.
Okay.
It proves one more point that you are a really prominent professor and distinguished teacher.
So we here at the Academy, we use the ANDA series. I teach the second year level. I'm kind of the queen of that. And then the first year level, they use ANDA Elemental, and this one is ANDA Intermedio, and that's the one where I am one of the authors. So those are the textbooks we use. Is there any way for me to, Marie, can I see the chat? I'm trying to figure out how to get in the chat. Should I just unshare my PowerPoint?
At the bottom of the screen,
At
the bottom of the screen, you have, yes,
Okay, I see.
And I have one more question for you. What kind of platform do you say that? Did you mention Teams? Do you use Teams? Microsoft?
Yeah, I personally don't use Teams. I use Blackboard Collaborative Ultra, and I have had much success with that. And I started using that because for a long time, Teams didn't have breakout groups, and I want my students talking with each other. So that's why I chose Blackboard. I do have colleagues that use Teams, and now Teams has that capability, but Teams is really, it's not a learning management system. It's for businesses. So it wasn't really developed for teachers. So I think that Blackboard has more options and more capabilities for teachers, for us as teachers, than Teams does. And we don't have access to Zoom. Just, this is my rare appearance on Zoom.
It's because you teach at the Air Force Academy because of the military reasons. Military.
Right.
Because it's, I don't understand, because Zoom is accessible, it's used, it's not so very safe to use Zoom for. I see. Okay, thank you very much. Dear Jean, I'm missing you so much.
Come back.
So I hope that one day we will meet with you. I hope so, because either I will go to the States or you will come here for our conference, because I'm missing you so much. My best regard to Jeff. To you.
Thank you. And my regards to your family, your daughter and your husband.
Thank you very much. Boris was asking about you.
Yes, Boris. Good, Boris. How about, do you have cats?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't have any cats anymore, but we'll figure it out. Either you come here or I'll go there again. My time in Moscow was excellent. So that was wonderful.
Yeah, we invite you to come to Moscow because everything changed just since last time you were there. You
I
were in
imagine.
2005 and it was a long time ago. Please
Yeah.
do come. Yeah, I hope that everything will be okay soon.
Okay, I hope so too. I
Thank
hope
you very
everybody
much.
stays safe.
Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you.
Svetlana. It's great to see you. Okay.
Great to see you. Yeah, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Okay, Marie, do I have any other questions?
Yeah, I'm about to ask. So, dear colleagues, if there are any questions, please ask. Otherwise, we'll finish up our third day of the educational week.
I'm sorry I talked so long. I just get really excited and I just,
That was wonderful. And please, dear colleagues, say thank you words to Jean, to her presentation. Give us exclamation marks if you enjoyed the talk, if you loved the examples, the cases, the exercises. Yes, that will show us that you really love them.
You're very, 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 very kind. Again, it's really hard to watch this. So thank you. You're a great audience. I'm sorry we couldn't be more interactive. If we had a couple hours, we could do that. Thanks for playing in the jam. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being great language teachers because language teachers rock.
Thank you, Jean. You are the best speaker in the world, you know.
Oh.
Energetic, inspiring, motivating, knowledgeable. Absolutely. So your workshop might be shown as a model for people who would like to attract a lot of students or teachers to their presentations and webinars. Because I think that you just prepared absolutely fantastic presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you for inviting me.
It was pragmatic on the one hand. You gave us a lot of examples. You share your experience. You demonstrated a lot of cases, how to use it, with whom to use it, how to do that. Plus, you gave us some theoretical framework, you know. And this is very important. Your timing was perfect as usual. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Svetlana. And can I just say one thing? I mean, this is kudos to Svetlana because when I saw that she's now a dean, I was really, oh my, because that's a big, 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 big deal here. So that's wonderful. Congratulations to that. And I'm in the process of editing a book, and I'm so honored and pleased that Dr. Titova is going to contribute a chapter. So, and it's about
we'll do our best. We'll do our best.
Oh, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. You'll be fine.
Although the time is very hectic, but we'll try. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Everybody who said these wonderful things in the chat, thank you so much. I so appreciate it. I'm glad that, I hope you learned something. If just one thing, just learn one thing, then I'm happy. Okay, great. Okay.
Okay.
I'll stay until okay.
Okay, all right. Well, this means that we're done with our third day. Jean, thank you very much. I'm taking the floor to finish up this day, and I will switch to Russian right now to give you some organizational moments. Итак, друзья, мы закончили наш третий день. Очень много эмоций, восторгов, радости. Мы рады, что вам понравилось. Благодарим вас за участие. Просим вас опубликовать обратную связь по третьему дню, по ссылке, которые я размещала в нашем чате. Еще раз публикую. Пожалуйста, переходите и расскажите нам о том, как прошел для вас третий день нашей образовательной недели. Обращаю ваше внимание на то, что у нас ушла вчера рассылка, и сегодня она тоже уйдет в районе 22 часов по московскому времени, где мы поделились с вами тем, как, соответственно, смотреть эфиры первого и второго дня. Такое же письмо вам придет сегодня вечером. Пожалуйста, обратите внимание, что здесь есть подробная инструкция, как смотреть. Вы попадаете на страницы, где размещено видео, можете смотреть, пересматривать. И то же самое будет у нас с третьим и с четвертым днем. Обращаю ваше внимание, что записи доступны по 22 число. 22 марта мы завершаем нашу образовательную неделю, а до тех пор просим вас знакомиться с материалами, оставлять обратную связь, чтобы получить максимум полезного от нашей образовательной недели. И еще один announcement, одно объявление. У нас открылся набор в педагогическую мастерскую, и сейчас и по 28 марта действуют скидки на 2 трека. У нас уже есть первые участники, те, кто оставили заявки и подтвердили участие. Мы благодарим вас, во-первых, а во-вторых, рады, приветствуем. Это означает, что в апреле будет для вас очень интересное и полезное время. Первый трек – методика развития навыков говорения на иностранном языке в онлайн и смешанной среде. И второй трек – игровые методики и геймификация в обучении иностранным языкам. Методика развития навыков говорения на иностранном языке пройдет у нас в формате практически живом. Это означает, что в апреле нас с вами ждет 4 мастер-класса на методику как раз обучения говорению. Эти 4 мастер-класса пройдут у нас 5 апреля, 8 апреля, 15 апреля и 22 апреля. Вы можете попасть на них в рамках педагогической мастерской, а можете, если решите, что вам нужен только один какой-то мастер-класс, приобрести мастер-классы отдельно. На все эти продукты сейчас действует скидка. Обращаю ваше внимание, что в рамках самого полностью модуля здесь идет доступ не только к 4 мастер-классам, но и идет доступ к 3 групповым встречам по обсуждению. То есть мы с вами не просто посмотрим мастер-классы, мы потом по итогам этих мастер-классов и в промежутках будем собираться и обсуждать этот материал, чтобы перекладывать его на вашу практику, внедрять в ваш образовательный процесс. Приглашаем вас составлять заявки и присоединяться. Ссылку на эту страницу я сейчас вам, соответственно, дам, и вы сможете оставить заявку и задать все уточняющие вопросы. Публикую. Угу. Скажите, пожалуйста, расписание этих 2 мастерских не накладывается, не совпадает? Татьяна, нет, конечно, не совпадают. То есть то, что у нас здесь в первой мастерской, в первом треке, вот даты, которые заявлены, они не будут пересекаться с датами игровых методик геймификации второго трека. Обратите внимание, что здесь у нас идет доступ к уже готовым 4 учебным модулям материалов. Я могла бы вам показать их подробно, но, видимо, сделаю это еще раз завтра, потому что сейчас времени у нас мало остается, вы уже давно с нами. Здесь, по сути, целый модуль, который вы изучаете самостоятельно, плюс к этому добавится еще 5 групповых онлайн-встреч и 2 мастер-класса, даты которых не будут совпадать с мастерской по методике развития навыков говорения, и одновременно с этим вы получаете доступ к потрясающему набору, количеству материалов. И, конечно же, те скидки, которые действуют, они стоят действительно того. Расписание пересекаться не будет. И доступ к материалам у вас остается без ограничений по времени. Мы идем на это, потому что не все коллеги успевают своевременно смотреть материал, а потом пересматривают и каждый раз пишут благодарные отзывы. Спасибо, что оставили, открыл для себя что-то новое. Задавали вопрос по поводу сертификатов. По участию в каждом из треке вы получите именной сертификат о прохождении полноценного модуля, где будет написано, что вы прошли педагогическую мастерскую по такому-то направлению. Будут указаны материалы, мастер-классы, по которым вы занимались. Соответственно, будет полный перечень того, что вы будете изучать. И вы сможете этот сертификат представить, например, в свою школу и рассказать о том, что вы практически занимались, отрабатывали и развивались. Если есть еще какие-то вопросы, то приглашаю вас, соответственно, задать эти вопросы прямо сейчас. Так, смотрю пока чат. Значит, завтра мы с вами начнем. Сейчас проверю еще наш YouTube. Угу. Так, мы с вами завтра начинаем в 16:45. Сегодня писали коллеги, что не получили какие-то рассылки. Ну, все ушло своевременно. Обратите внимание, что наши рассылки могут попадать в папку промо, могут попадать у вас иногда в спам, если вы долго не открываете письма, вдруг неожиданно потом решите открыть. Так вот, заходите обязательно в свой почтовый ящик и находите наши письма и открывайте. Если вы их не будете открывать, вы просто-напросто потом пропустите важную информацию. Мы это делаем для того, чтобы вы были в курсе всего, что у нас происходит. Завтра, 19 марта, в пятницу, ждем вас в 16:45. Первые 15 минут будут у нас вводными. Если вы не хотите слушать организационную информацию, из University Press, еще, да, Бен Голдстайн. И в 18:00 с нами наша коллега из дружественного проекта Жанна Петросян. И завтра же, дорогие друзья, мы расскажем вам о том, как вступить в закрытый клуб, тот самый клуб, про который я сегодня вас спрашивала, закрытый клуб единомышленников, как попасть в предстоящее большое интересное событие, мероприятие, которое состоится у нас уже через чуть больше, чем через месяц, в апреле. Поэтому если вы хотите быть первыми, кто узнает об этом, и попасть в 100 участников, кто сможет участвовать в этом событии, то мы вас приглашаем завтра обязательно быть. Вот такое закулисье. Алена спрашивает, за те вебинары, которые вы сейчас смотрите, будут ли сертификаты? Повторюсь, у нас с вами на каждый день есть анкета, которую мы просим вас заполнять. Это анкета обратной связи. Мы просим вас оставлять содержательный, наполненный отзыв о том, что вы прослушали, что вы узнали, чтобы мы действительно понимали, что вы были на образовательной неделе и действительно с нами работали, конспектировали, внимательно слушали, а не пришли сюда для галочки. Такое, к сожалению, тоже случается, но вот такие участники, которые оставят 4 отзыва по 4 дням эфира, получат от нас сертификаты о прохождении образовательной недели. Мы вышлем вам их на электронную почту. Надеюсь, я ответила. Ссылку на анкету я тоже вам сейчас в чат отправлю. Угу. Ну что же, дорогие друзья, думаю, на этой прекрасной ноте мы будем завершать наш сегодняшний эфир. Рады, что вы сегодня были с нами. Увидимся завтра. До скорых встреч. Всего хорошего.